I used to think being the responsible one would eventually pay off. That if you kept your head down, worked hard, and didn't make waves, people would respect you for it. But apparently, in my family, being responsible just makes you the designated doormat. My name's Caleb. I'm 28, single, and, for the most part, financially independent. I've always been the cautious one, the saver, the planner, the guy who reads through contract fine print and calculates 3-month emergency funds down to the last cent. It's not like I had some tragic upbringing or anything. My parents weren't abusive, I wasn't neglected. But I always got the sense that I was convenient. Like the easy kid, the one who didn't cause trouble, who handled things himself, and therefore didn't need as much attention. Meanwhile, my younger brother Micah, total opposite. Micah is 25 and has lived like the main character of every early 2000s coming-of-age movie, except without the growth arc. He's charming, reckless, always in some kind of mess. Failed out of college twice, wrecked 2 used cars our parents helped him finance, and last I checked, he was trying to start some NFT project with a group of guys named things like Drew Dog and Cash. He's not a bad person, I guess. Just coddled. Always has been. Every time he screwed up, there was a parachute waiting, usually stitched together by my parents' blind faith and just a touch of guilt over where they went wrong with him. I, on the other hand, was expected to figure things out. I did okay for myself. Landed a decent tech job out of college, moved to a small apartment 2 hours away, started saving. I wasn't rolling in it, but I had a safety net I built myself. Or at least I did, until last year. Around November, my lease was up. My company had just announced they were going fully remote, so I figured I'd save some money and come back home for a few months. Not because I was broke, just being smart. Rent was insane, and I figured I could stash away a bit more before buying a place of my own. I still remember the exact conversation I had with my mom when I floated the idea. "You're always so thoughtful, Caleb," she said, beaming like I'd won an award for most predictable son. "It'll be good to have you here. Just temporary, of course." Of course, there was a part of me that hesitated. Micah had just moved back in too. Something about taking time to refocus his energy, whatever that meant. But my parents had the space, and I figured I could survive a few months under the same roof as my brother. I had a plan. 6 months max, then out. I even joked with my dad that I'd cook twice a week as rent. He laughed, said they were just happy to help. When I moved in, I brought my savings account with me. I had about $31,000 saved up, not a fortune, but it represented years of side gigs, careful budgeting, and 0 vacations. I kept it in a high-yield account I managed myself. But one afternoon, about 2 weeks in, my mom came into the living room holding a letter in her hand, visibly shaken. Something about the house insurance needing to be paid up front due to a change in their policy. I don't know if it was legit or not. It probably was, but she looked panicked. "We'll figure it out," she kept saying. "We always do." She wasn't asking me for anything, but the guilt hit hard. And honestly, I wanted to help. They'd let me move back. They were feeding me, letting me use their Wi-Fi and space. So that night over dinner, I offered, "Look, I've got a good amount saved up. If you guys need a cushion while I'm here, I can front you something. Just let me know what you need. I'll treat it like storage. I don't need to touch it for a while." My dad looked surprised. My mom got misty-eyed. Micah, who had been silently scrolling through TikTok the entire meal, muttered something about me, trying to buy favorite child points. I ignored it. 2 days later, my mom gently asked if I could move the money over so she and dad could manage it while I was under their roof. "Just so it's all in one place," she said. "We'll treat it like it's in a safe. You can ask for it back whenever you need it." I hesitated. But again, they were my parents. What reason would they have to lie? So I transferred the full $31,187.54 to their joint account. That's when the little thing started. Micah would borrow my headphones and leave them in the bathroom. My mom would ask me to keep an eye on him, just in case he's having a rough day. My dad would nod along when Micah snapped at me over nothing, only to pull me aside later and say, "You know how your brother is. Try not to poke him." I told myself it was temporary. I kept working my remote job, stayed quiet, and kept my eyes on the prize. Build a down payment, move out, get back to living like an adult. But when I finally told them I was looking at listings a few months later, things got weird. "That's exciting," my mom said, a little too fast. But don't feel like you have to rush out. You're not a burden. Yeah, Micah added with a smirk. At least someone's saving money by living here. The way he said it made something in me pause. Later that night, I looked over my finances again. I'd kept a separate spreadsheet tracking what I gave them and when, just in case. But I hadn't asked about the money since I gave it over. Honestly, I didn't want to seem greedy. That was always Micah's territory. He was the one who asked for rides, cash, favors. I was the good one, the helpful one, until I wasn't. It happened yesterday. We were sitting in the backyard, just me, Mom, and Dad. Micah was out networking, which probably meant mooching off someone else's Netflix. I'd just finished a long work week and had finally decided to start the apartment hunt for Real. So casually, like it was no big deal, I asked, "Hey, so I think I'm going to need to pull some of that savings soon. I'm looking at places starting next week." I expected a nod, maybe a sure, "We'll get that transferred." Instead, my mom froze. Like, actually froze, mid-sip of her coffee, eyes wide, hand trembling just a bit. My dad looked down at his shoes, then cleared his throat. We thought your brother needed it more." I stared at him. "What?" "The money," he said again, like I'd misheard him the first time. "Micah. Well, he's been having a hard time. He wanted to start that side project. He's been struggling. And since you weren't using the savings, and we figured you'd be okay, we thought it made sense to help him get on his feet." I didn't speak. I couldn't. He didn't want to work some fast food job while he was building his brand, Mom added quickly, almost like she was defending him from me. "And you're so careful, Caleb. We knew you'd bounce back." I asked, finally, because I needed to hear it out loud. "You gave him all of it?" They didn't answer. They didn't need to. I stood up and walked inside. And that's when I saw him. Micah, back earlier than expected, sitting on the couch with his feet on the coffee table, watching YouTube videos on passive income strategies. He saw me, grinned. "Thanks for the seed money, bro," he said, like it was a joke. I said nothing. Not yet. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not just the anger, not just the betrayal. Something deeper, colder, sharper. I'm done being the convenient one, the reliable one, the background character in Micah's story. They think I'll just accept this? That I'll roll over because I always have. Let them think that. Because what they don't know is, I've already started planning. And I promise you, they're going to regret ever choosing him over me. Badly. It's strange how quickly your perception of people can shift. One minute, they're your family. The next, they're strangers you can't trust with a single cent or a single word. Ever since that backyard conversation, something in me has felt permanently off. Like my skin doesn't quite fit right. I used to think coming back home was a calculated, temporary move. Now it feels like I walked straight into a trap. I didn't say a word to anyone that night. Not my parents. Not Micah. I shut myself in my old bedroom and just sat there, staring at the walls. It was still decorated with faded posters and dusty trophies from high school, like a time capsule of someone more hopeful. Someone who believed being dependable meant being valued. I remember thinking, they didn't even ask me. Not once. They just decided I didn't need it. And maybe worse, they didn't even seem sorry. The next morning, I went through the motions. Logged into work. Answered emails. Kept my face neutral. But everything felt heavier. Slower. I could hear Micah in the living room, talking loudly on the phone about some collab and a new branding opportunity. My mom passed me a plate of toast like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't wiped out years of my hard work in a single impulsive move. That was when the resentment really started to seep in. Not just toward Micah. Toward them. They didn't help him. They enabled him. They funded his laziness, his arrogance. And they used my savings to do it. I tried to confront them again. Calmly. I waited until dinner, when everyone was sitting together, and brought it up without anger, just confusion. "I still don't understand how that decision was made," I said. "You didn't even tell me. You just gave him the money and assumed I'd be fine with it." My mom looked up from her plate, eyes already watering like she was the victim. "We didn't assume, Caleb. We thought you'd understand." Micah scoffed. "Oh my God, are we still on this?" Dad put a hand up. "Let's not fight. It was a tough call. Your brother needed it. You didn't. That wasn't your call to make," I said, finally letting my voice sharpen. "That was my money. You should have asked. Or at the very least, told me." Micah laughed, shaking his head. "You act like you're some kind of martyr. You lived here for free, remember? They cooked for you. Did your laundry. I didn't ask for any of that. I snapped. I offered the money as a gesture, not as a blank check for you to play entrepreneur with. Mom wiped her eyes. You're being so ungrateful, Caleb. We've always done our best. That was when I realized this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a pattern. They always found a way to make Micah's problems into a family emergency and my boundaries into selfishness. I dropped it that night, not because I was done, but because I knew arguing wouldn't get me anywhere. I needed a plan, not just a way to recover my money, but a way to make them feel what they did, to finally shake them out of this delusion that Micah was some fragile little genius and I was just the spare son, built for support. Over the next few weeks, I played the long game. I kept quiet, smiled when spoken to, offered to pick up groceries. I knew the more cooperative I seemed, the less they'd see me coming. Micah's little business was, unsurprisingly, going nowhere. He spent most of his days on the couch, watching YouTube videos about success without effort. Every now and then he'd drop hints about needing just a bit more capital to launch his next idea. I ignored him, but the favoritism didn't stop. One night, my mom asked me to move my car from the driveway because Micah had people coming over for a meeting. Can't they just park on the street? I asked. She frowned. Micah says it makes them think he's not serious. He needs the space. Right. Because nothing screams professional like a meeting next to a bowl of Cheetos on a living room couch. Still, I moved my car. Again, playing the part. Then came the next blow. I had been tracking my savings, what should have been my savings, trying to figure out how much could realistically be recovered. I didn't know exactly what they gave him or how, but I was starting to piece together patterns. My parents weren't subtle. I noticed new electronics in Micah's room. A second monitor, a business chair, even a ring light. I overheard him bragging to one of his friends on a Discord call that he hadn't spent a single hour working a real job since high school. The moment that broke me, though, came one afternoon while I was on a Zoom meeting in my room. My door was closed, camera on, mid-presentation. I heard a knock, barely, before Micah burst in, holding a phone in one hand and a stack of paper in the other. Dude, can I use your printer real quick? I looked at him, stunned. Micah, I'm in a meeting. It's urgent. Just chill, I'll be fast. He walked right over and started using it. Loudly, while I was still on call with my manager. I muted myself and hissed, "Get out. Now." He rolled his eyes and printed 2 more sheets before finally walking out, without even apologizing. I barely recovered the meeting. My manager noticed the distraction. I had to fake a Wi-Fi glitch excuse. I was furious and humiliated, but what happened next nearly sent me over the edge. That night at dinner, I brought it up calmly. Micah, can you knock next time? I was in a work meeting, and you barged in like it was your office. He didn't even look up. Relax. It took 2 seconds. I asked you to leave, and you ignored me. That's not okay. Here we go, he muttered, stabbing at his food. My dad looked at me sharply. You could be a little more flexible, Caleb. He's trying to get his projects going. It's important. I laughed. Actually laughed. You think what he's doing is important, but the job that pays my bills and helped this household survive for years is just, what? Background noise. My mom looked hurt. That's not what we're saying, isn't it? I said, because it sure feels like everything I do is expected, and everything he does is celebrated. There was silence. Then Micah pushed back his chair and stood up. You're just bitter because no one throws you a parade for being boring, he said. You've got your spreadsheets and your 5-year plan, but no one actually likes you, Caleb. You just make them feel guilty. He walked out. I looked at my parents. They didn't say a word. That was it. That was my breaking point. They'd let him disrespect me, walk all over my space, steal my money, and now insult me to my face, and they wouldn't even defend me. I wasn't a person to them. I was a utility. That night, I packed a bag. I didn't leave, not yet, but I started preparing. The next day, I requested my full transaction history from the bank, going back a full year. I combed through every entry from their account, tracing any large withdrawals that didn't match with bills. I cataloged dates, matched them against things I'd noticed in the house. When Micah got that new tablet, when he ordered that bulk coffee set from Amazon, when he rented a drone for some social media video, I found enough to know for sure they hadn't just borrowed some of it. They had spent every last cent. $31,187. Gone. It wasn't even the money anymore. It was the betrayal. The final confirmation that, in this house, my value was measured only by how useful I was to Micah. So I started phase 1. I told my parents I was thinking of staying a bit longer, that I was overreacting before, that I needed more time to save again before moving out. They looked relieved. They thought they'd gotten away with it. Micah even offered me a smug little, "Good to have you around, bro." I smiled, told him I'd help him with some of his business ideas, asked if I could sit in on a few meetings. "You've got such a good instinct for this stuff," I said. "Maybe I could learn something." He grinned, flattered, finally ready to drop the corporate chains. "Huh?" I nodded. "Yeah, let's build something big. Together." That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've been taking careful notes, listening to every call, watching his habits, figuring out who his partners are, what accounts he uses, how his little scam operation actually functions. Because make no mistake, he's not an entrepreneur. He's a con artist with a Wi-Fi connection. And I'm going to expose him. But not yet. Not until everything's in place. Not until they all see what they created. Because when this comes down, it won't just be about the money anymore. It'll be about loyalty, about consequences, and about making sure the next time they think about throwing me aside, they remember what happened when Caleb finally stood up for himself. And trust me, they won't forget it. It's funny how hitting rock bottom doesn't always feel like a dramatic fall. Sometimes, it's just a quiet click, a door closing behind you, a realization that there's no going back. That was me. In the weeks after my brother steamrolled through my dignity and my parents watched it happen like it was a weather report. Just background noise. I stopped waiting for apologies. Stopped expecting explanations. I wasn't part of the family in the way I thought. I was a resource they had drained, and now that I was empty, they were moving on. I hit bottom slowly, not with a crash, but with a suffocating stillness. I'd wake up in the room I used to dream in as a kid and feel like a ghost. Every morning started with the same thought. You gave everything to people who would never do the same for you. And every day, I'd push it down just enough to function. Log into work. Keep my head down. Play nice. They thought I was over it. My dad even joked once, "You're starting to smile again, Caleb." I wanted to ask him what there was to smile about, but I didn't. I just nodded, shoved my hands deeper into my hoodie, and said, "Yeah, I'm getting there." I wasn't. Not really. I barely slept. The weight of betrayal sits heavy on your chest at night. My mind would loop through everything. Every time I covered for Micah growing up, every award my parents forgot to show up to, every time they told me I was the reliable one. I realized I had been trained to be useful, not loved. And the worst part? I let it happen. But something changed the night I went for a walk. I needed air, real air, not the recycled, tense atmosphere of the house. It was past midnight, cold enough to sting, and the street was silent. I walked without a destination, just hoping movement would quiet the noise in my head. That's when I saw the old community center. It was barely lit, just one flickering light above the entrance, but the sign on the door caught my eye. Coding Club, seeking mentors. Apply inside. I don't know why I went in. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself I still had value. Maybe I just didn't want to go home. The place was empty except for a janitor sweeping the hallway. He pointed me to a sign-up clipboard. No interviews. Just a short form and a list of software languages. I filled it out on autopilot. Python, Java, a little HTML. My hands shook a little when I dropped the pen. The next week, they called. It started as one evening a week. Then two. I'd sit with teens trying to learn code, some of them curious, some of them quiet, some of them smarter than I ever was at their age. And for the first time in months, I felt visible, useful in a way that didn't involve sacrificing myself. There was one kid, Nathan, 15, barely spoke for the first 3 sessions, but I noticed he kept tinkering with a simple game engine I'd shown the class. So I stayed late one night, pulled up a few scripts, and said, "Hey, want to try adding collision detection?" His eyes lit up. It was like watching a locked door swing open. That moment meant more to me than any fake smile Micah had ever given me. I didn't tell my parents about the mentoring. I didn't tell anyone. It wasn't for them. It was mine. Meanwhile, Micah was spiraling in the most obnoxious way possible. His business had pivoted again. First it was digital art, then personal branding. Now it was something about selling a lifestyle course for people who lacked clarity. He'd taken over the living room, turned it into his studio, with LED lights and a whiteboard he never actually used. I watched him record videos about achieving success with money he didn't earn and advice he didn't follow. He was convinced he was blowing up, kept bragging about his engagement rates and brand deals in the pipeline. But the cracks were forming. He wasn't getting the traction he claimed. I caught him editing fake comments onto his videos. Heard him on the phone asking for deadline extensions on bills. Then one morning, I overheard my mom offering to dip into their retirement fund just to float him until next month. That's when I knew the well was drying up. They were still pouring into him. Even now, that could have been the part that broke me all over again. But it didn't, because something was changing. I was climbing. Quietly. Carefully. I started freelancing again. Small stuff, code cleanup, app testing, occasional UX redesigns. I didn't need the money right away, but I wanted it flowing. And I wanted something else too. Separation. Every dollar I earned was another step out of the grave they'd helped bury me in. I reactivated an old domain I'd purchased years ago, kaylabuilds.com, and started posting small dev tutorials and walkthroughs. No big plan, just putting knowledge out there. 2 weeks in, one of my posts about streamlining backend architecture went viral on Reddit. Someone from a mid-tier startup reached out for a consultation. They paid me $900 for a 2-hour call. I didn't tell anyone. I just updated my spreadsheet and kept going. The money wasn't the point. It was the ownership, the privacy. For the first time since I came back home, I had something that was mine again. And then came the catalyst. Micah announced he was hosting a launch party in the backyard for his course. Soft launch, he called it, which I think was code for please clap. My parents were all in. Mom made snacks. Dad helped string up lights. I stayed out of the way. I wasn't invited. The night of the party, I heard the laughter from my room. A dozen people mingling around Micah's setup, clinking plastic cups together, congratulating him on his platform. I stayed upstairs. I had work to do. I was on a call with a client in Germany, setting up a framework for a new app. Real work. But around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Nathan. Mr. Caleb, I finished the platformer. Do you want to see it? I smiled. Told him to send me a video. He did. It was clunky. Basic. But he'd built an entire level system from scratch. I sent back feedback. Told him I was proud. He sent a smiley face and said, I didn't think I could do this until you helped. That was it for me. The tipping point. The moment the fog lifted. Micah had a dozen people clapping for a project he didn't build. But I had one kid who believed because of me. That mattered more than any party, any stolen savings, any twisted family loyalty. From that point on, I was done hiding, done playing neutral. I didn't need to argue with my parents about what they'd done. I didn't need to fight Micah for respect he'd never earned. I had my own path now. I got approved for a new apartment 2 weeks later. Small place. 3rd floor. View of a grocery store parking lot. But it was mine. I signed the lease and paid the deposit in full, using the money I'd earned after they emptied me. And when the confirmation email hit my inbox, I didn't cry. But I closed my eyes and whispered, never again. I started packing quietly. Nothing flashy. Just one box at a time. I moved clothes, books, old notebooks filled with ideas I thought I'd forgotten. I boxed up every piece of me that didn't belong to them anymore. I didn't tell them I was leaving. Not yet. Because the real move wasn't physical. It was what comes next. I'd collected everything I needed. Dates, transactions, screenshots of Micah's fake testimonials. I even had audio recordings. Nothing illegal, just clips from his public videos and the lies he told in them. All of it ready, stored, labeled. Because I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to rise first, then burn the bridge after. And I wasn't going to do it alone. Because people like Micah forget something important. The reliable ones. The background characters. We watch everything. And when we finally stop being quiet, we don't just speak up. We rewrite the story. I don't think revenge is about rage. Not the kind that simmers quietly for a year. It's not wild or messy. It's precise. It's calculated. Revenge, done right, is patient. It waits until your enemies forget what they did, until they feel safe. And then it takes everything they value most. That's the headspace I was in as I walked out of my parents' house for the last time. Well, the last time they thought I was still living there. It was a Wednesday afternoon. Micah was out, working, which usually meant filming himself in front of a laptop at a cafe while sipping overpriced coffee. My parents were gardening. I said I had errands to run, threw a duffel over my shoulder, and left. I didn't say goodbye. Not yet. Because I wasn't done with them. Not by a long shot. I'd already moved half of my stuff into the apartment. The essentials. Computer. monitors, my hard drive, that old high school hoodie I still wore when I needed comfort. The new place was small, 2 rooms, mismatched kitchen tiles, but it was silent, clean, mine. I stood in the middle of the empty living room and took a breath that felt like the first inhale after being underwater too long. I wasn't rebuilding anymore. I was ready. And now, it was time to set the pieces in motion. The first step was information. I already had most of the bank history, screenshots, voice memos, and receipts. But information alone doesn't take down people like Micah. You need timing, leverage, audience. So I made a folder. Project Reset. Inside, I compiled everything. I even made subfolders. Financial, for the exact transfer of $31,187.54 I gave my parents, and the series of subsequent withdrawals that matched up suspiciously well with Micah's purchases. Business, fake testimonials from his website, time-stamped screenshots of him editing comment sections, and 2 private recordings he posted in an unlisted YouTube video talking about how to fake proof of concept. Lifestyle, screenshots of his public stories on Instagram and TikTok, where he claimed to have made 6 figures in coaching sales, but used photos of Airbnb rentals as his own home office. Contradictions, a document showing side-by-side comparisons of what he said online versus what he said at home. Self-made online. Caleb's money helped me get started in private. This wasn't about petty humiliation. This was about the truth. Micah had built a house of cards, and I knew exactly where the wind would come from. Next came the chessboard. One night, I accidentally ran into Micah at a local event. He was hosting a little networking mixer at a hotel bar, something for like-minded creators. It wasn't public. He had emailed an invite list, but one of the kids at the mentoring center forwarded it to me after Micah cold-pitched him during a volunteer shift. I RSVP'd under a pseudonym. Made a new Gmail. Easy. I showed up in a blazer, nothing fancy, and pretended not to recognize him at first. When we made eye contact, he squinted, confused. Caleb. I smiled. Small world. He hesitated. What are you doing here? Looking for a content strategist. Someone told me this was the place to be. His ego puffed up instantly. I could practically see his chest inflate. Dude, he said, throwing an arm around me. You should have told me you were coming. This is my event. He introduced me to the group, half of whom looked barely out of high school, the rest clearly there for free drinks and vague hopes of going viral. He called himself a founder and a vision architect. At one point, he tried to pitch me on investing in his upcoming course, the one I helped fund. I asked with a smile. He blinked, then laughed. Come on, man. Let's not bring family stuff into this. That was just a favor. You're going to get a return once this blows up. Right. A return. I told him I'd think about it, then asked if he had a pitch deck I could share with some contacts in the startup world. He lit up and said yes, and emailed it to me on the spot. That was exactly what I needed. The deck was full of lies, fake metrics, inflated user data, and worst of all, testimonials with stolen photos of real people he'd scraped off LinkedIn, presenting them as coaching graduates. I added all of it to the folder. Step 3. Allies. This one took finesse. First, I reached out to a contact from the freelancing world, James, a guy I worked with on a code base a while back who now ran a tech blog. Not huge, but respectable. James had a section on his site called Digital Charlatans, a monthly feature on scams in the online guru world. I pitched him the story, sent a teaser, left Micah's name out of it at first, just to gauge interest. James bid instantly. This is gold, he said. I've seen this template a dozen times. Promise success, fake proof, disappear after the refund period ends. You've got receipts. I said yes. We scheduled a call. Then I reached out to 2 people from the mentoring center. Both had stories about Micah trying to pitch them on paid coaching, despite them being under 18. I documented it all. With their permission, of course. Blurred names. Protected identities. Last, I reached out to Micah's own collaborators. The few legit ones. There weren't many. Most had already distanced themselves, but I tracked down one guy, Darren, who had designed Micah's early branding materials and had never been paid in full. I offered to connect him with people who could help him recover his money, if he could confirm a few details about Micah's practices. He agreed immediately. Said Micah was all flash, no follow-through. I added Darren's emails to the folder. Now came the moment I'd been working toward, the opportunity. And wouldn't you know it, Micah gave it to me on a silver platter. He announced a webinar, a live one. The topic? How I built a six-figure coaching brand in under 12 months. Set for a Friday night. Free access. Email registration required. I signed up with 3 different emails. So did James. So did Darren. So did Nathan. Micah promoted the webinar like it was his Super Bowl. Instagram reels, countdown timers, testimonials that were still fake. My parents reposted everything. My dad called me and said, "Maybe you should tune in. Your brother's really making something of himself." I said I wouldn't miss it. What they didn't know was that I had also messaged the payment processor Micah was using, Stripe. I flagged his account with documentation showing misrepresentation, especially regarding coaching minors. I didn't hear back right away. I didn't need to, because once the webinar started, the countdown to collapse had already begun. I sat in my apartment, lights low, headphones on. Micah appeared on screen, wearing a black turtleneck like he was trying to channel Steve Jobs. Behind him, a custom background of a luxury apartment that I knew was just a green screen. He started with a big smile. "Hey everyone, I'm Micah, and tonight I'm going to teach you how I built a six-figure business with no degree and no 9-to-5. I took screenshots, recorded the session, made notes of every claim, every lie. At the 30-minute mark, he launched into his offer. Normally, my course is $997. But for tonight only, I'm dropping it to $399. Lifetime access. Limited seats. Then he dropped the link. That's when I made my move. James posted the article. Exposed. The fake empire of a coaching visionary. It included screenshots, testimonial comparisons, an interview with Darren, and a redacted summary of Micah's Stripe disputes. 10 minutes later, the story hit Reddit. Then Twitter. People from the webinar started commenting. "Wait, is this the same guy? Yo, I think we're being scammed. Look at this article." He faked all his reviews. Micah kept trying to talk, his smile twitching. "Hey guys, don't believe everything you see online. This is just hate. I've got real students." The chat flooded with links to the expose. And then, his stream froze. I grinned. He came back a moment later, visibly shaken. "We're having some technical issues. Please bear with me." But it was too late. The seeds were planted. The truth was out. And I hadn't even revealed the final twist yet. Because remember, this wasn't just about Micah. It was about them. The parents who stood by, who helped fund the lie, who thought I'd stay quiet forever. They were about to learn what it meant to ignore the son who watched everything, who kept records, who rebuilt himself from the ground up, and remembered every detail. By the time Micah's webinar collapsed, the damage was already irreversible. I watched it happen in real time. His voice cracked, his chat filled with accusations, and the confidence he wore like armor started peeling off in layers. He ended the stream abruptly, claiming technical difficulties and promising to reschedule soon. There would be no reschedule. Within the hour, the Reddit post hit the front page of /r/scams. James's article got picked up by a mid-tier tech outlet and shared by a few influential creators in the anti-hustle community. Someone even clipped a side-by-side comparison of Micah's fake testimonials with the original LinkedIn profiles he stole from. It went viral on Twitter with the caption, "Another fake guru bites the dust. Don't fall for people like this." I didn't need to do anything else. Micah had built his entire brand on a foundation of borrowed hype and stolen credibility. Once you knock out even one pillar, the whole thing collapses. I had pulled 5. Still, I wasn't done. Not yet. I hadn't told my parents I'd moved out. I hadn't told them anything, really. And that silence? That was intentional. Because the final part of my plan required one last performance, and it would happen face-to-face. I showed up 2 days after the webinar with a box of cinnamon rolls. I wanted to make it feel normal. I needed them off guard. When I walked in, my mom smiled in that slightly overcompensating way people do when something's gone wrong and they're trying to pretend it hasn't. "Caleb," she said, "how nice. You didn't tell us you were coming by." Micah was in the living room, slouched on the couch, hoodie pulled over his face. He didn't say a word. Dad came in from the garage, wiping his hands on an old towel. "Good to see you, son. You want coffee?" "Sure," I said. "Let's all sit down. I actually have something to say." The 3 of them exchanged glances. My mom sat. Dad followed. Micah didn't move. I took a breath, set the box of cinnamon rolls on the table like I was making peace. Then I pulled out the folder. "I know about the money," I said calmly. "All of it." Micah's head turned slightly, just enough to let me see the panic blooming in his eyes. I know it didn't go toward bills or house insurance. I know you used it to fund Micah's business. And I know, because I have records, exactly when and how. My dad opened his mouth. I cut him off. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to fight. I just want you to know what you gave away. That money wasn't sitting idle. It was earmarked. I was going to use it to start my own company. Something real. Something I've actually been building in the background while living here. My mom blinked. You've been? Yes. And that company is now live. And profitable. And fully mine. I turned to Micah. But here's the thing. I've also been collecting proof. Of every lie you've told. Every fake testimonial. Every kid you pitched a course to. Every payment you accepted under false pretenses. He stood up. You don't get to play judge, Caleb. This isn't a court. No, I said. But Stripe disagrees. So does the IRS. And probably your PayPal account, once they finish the fraud investigation I started. He paled. You filed as a sole proprietor, right? Under your own name? Yeah. Bad move. I looked at my parents, now pale and silent. I tried to be the good son. I tried to do the right thing. But you made it clear where your loyalties were. You gambled with my future to cushion his laziness. My mom whispered, we didn't think. No, you didn't. And now Mike is facing a civil lawsuit, a possible tax audit, and an article with his full name trending on Google for all the wrong reasons. I stood. But don't worry. I'm not suing you. You were foolish, not malicious. You won't get another cent from me, but I'm not coming after what's left of your retirement. I'm not like him. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. I took out a printed check, set it gently on the table. $31,187.54. Void. Just wanted you to see what respect used to look like. The fallout was swift and brutal. Micah's Stripe account was frozen. His PayPal was flagged. His domain got blacklisted after enough people reported him. His collaborators ghosted him, and one even filed a formal complaint. When the article picked up traction, the mentoring center banned him from events entirely. I never saw him leave the house. A friend told me he'd taken down all his social media within 3 days. His fake empire had vanished overnight. But mine? Mine was just getting started. The startup I'd been quietly building, CoreBridge Solutions, landed its first 5-figure client the same week. My mentoring program with the community center expanded into a summer coding bootcamp. And I hired Nathan, the high school kid who'd built the platformer, as a part-time assistant. He cried when I sent him his first paycheck. As for my parents, we don't talk much anymore. My mom sends the occasional message. Hope you're doing well. Micah is having a tough time. Can we talk? But I haven't replied. Because forgiveness is a gift. And they already spent theirs. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it, burning the bridge, cutting ties. I don't. I tried to be the son who gave without asking, who trusted, who believed that family meant something stronger than obligation. But when they chose someone else over me, when they watched him laugh in my face and still handed him the match to burn me, they made their choice. So I made mine. I built something real. And I made sure they'd never forget what they lost. My silence was the setup. My success was the revenge. And walking away was the end.